Hello everyone, now we're having the lecture 2, the second week, and we will talk about political system for our international business model. So, what are our session objectives? Firstly, to examine different legal forms and economic systems, to evaluate them and to their basic differences. Later on, we would like to understand the relationship between individualism and collectivism, which basically affect the political economies and the political system which the countries govern their nation. And also, we will understand the main features of totalitarian regimes and the democracy and to what extent they are valid in today's world. So if we look at the political system, we have the first term for you, political economy. Means the political, economic and the legal system of a country are all interdependent. It means that when one factor changes, it also affects the rest and the others. They interact and influence. And also, in doing so, they affect the level of economic well-being. So think about the recent elections in USA. Donald Trump has won, and their currency, the dollar, has improved against other countries with which break record breaking. And nowadays, their currency is high, so they got more investments, they got more job opportunities. So one factor also affects the others within the relation of economic, legal, and political system. Which brings us to the term political economy is the system of a government in a nation. We can measure them according to two dimensions. First one, to what extent they emphasize collectivism as opposed to individualism. Secondly, to what extent they are democratic or totalitarian, which will be explained in upcoming slides. And these dimensions are interrelated. Systems that emphasize collectivism tend toward be more totalitarian regime, whereas those who place more importance on individualism, the more freedom to individual, tend to be more democratic. So, let's see what the collectivism and individualism is. Collectivism is a political system which stresses the importance of primacy of collective goals over the individual goals. So in this kind of system, the sake of community is more important than the sake of individual. So needs of a society as a whole are generally viewed more important than needs as human beings, the single individuals. So in the collectivist regimes, individuals' right to do something may be restricted or may be banned in the means of the goods of society or for the common good. So if they believe that usage of these devices will be harmful for the sake of the community, they can ban people to use these devices in the sake of the community. If we look at George Hofstede has extensive researches on collectivism and individualism, which I will show you in a minute. So you can enter the website. When you Google it, Hofstede, really one of the gurus of the culture. So when we check the website, you can see cultural dimensions, which includes also innovation and dimension concepts. You have the values around, practices, the symbols, and later on, he talks about organizational culture. And also we have cultural dimensions within the national culture. So each country has different culture and their behaviors changes. So we can see the power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, so on and so forth. You can check it out on your free time. And as we're talking now, the individualism and collectivism is one of the important tools that you can use when you are going to deal with international business, because you need to know whether the society is we-oriented, which is collectivist currently, or whether the society is I-oriented, which is individual society. So if you are appointed as a business manager and if you start to talk, I will do this, I will delegate you, I will perform, and if you are in a collectivist country, your employees will be demotivated. So if we carry on, socialism. Modern socialism has roots to Karl Marx. Probably you heard about him. And he argued that free benefited expense of many within the capitalist system, where individual freedoms are not restricted. So people are free to do everything, but from this freedom, only few part of the society benefits. So in the early 70s, the ideology, socialist ideology, split into two broad camps. On the one hand, we have communists. They believe that socialism could only be happened if there is violent revolution. So they will have the guns, shoot who is in the power, have totalitarian dictatorship. Whereas on the other side, we have social democrats, and they committed themselves to have democratic means, and they were against revolution and dictatorship. So their argument was, we can achieve socialism by applying democratic means. The communist version of socialism reached its peak during 1970s, when the majority of the world used to be live under the communist states, and they used to be controlled by a communist party. Soviet Union is one of the biggest examples. China, Vietnam, and Cuba were the countries where the Communist Party used to be in charge during 1970s. And by the mid-1990s, Soviet Union had collapsed. And then what happens? 15 new republics that emerged, many of which at least nominally structured as democracies. Today, there are many consequences of Soviet economies as well. Okay, we have a picture here where the East and West Germans tear down the Berlin Wall on the 9th November 1989. So Berlin Wall used to be a symbol of the division of the West and East. In other ways, Soviet Union used to be symbolized by this wall, and when this wall falls down, the people started to realize that the communism started to collapse. And the two parts of the city were physically divided in 1961 with the construction of the Berlin Wall. So after this, the communist side started to lose its impact, and if you look at now, actually only minority of states are used to be controlled by communist states. Cuba, one example, even they start to negotiation within the USA, and on the other hand, we also North Korea. They are totally communist regime with a dictator, with a totalitarian controller of the government. So, if we carry on, as already talked about individualism, opposite of the collectivism. And this term refers to the philosophy the individual should have the freedom in his or her way, in the economic ways, political ways, and if they want anything, they need to be free to perform. So, sake of the individual is more important than the sake of the society. Individualism stressed that the interests of the individual should take precedence over the interests of the state, as I already mentioned. And we can look democracy and totalitarianism now. Democracy, a nice word, people start to using it, love to using it, businessmen, politicians, actors, lecturers, and what it means then? It refers to a political system in which government is by the people exercised either directly or through elected representatives. So if you directly explain your opinions, like in a referendum or in a poll, it is direct representation. But we have also representative democracy, when, and it is most used within the world, when you select someone to represent your ideas, it is called representative democracy. And in this kind of democracy, citizens periodically elect individuals who will represent them. So think about your country, elections happening every either 4 years or 5 years time when the period ends. So when you elect someone, these representatives form a government whose function is to make decisions on the behalf of the people who select them. An elected representative who fail to perform their job adequately, if they not perform well, they will be voted out of the office in the next election. So we have some rights, some actions to guarantee that elected representatives can be held accountable for their actions by the electorate. And ideal representative democracy has a number of safeguards that are typically enriched in law. So first one, an individual's right to freedom of expression, opinion, and organization. So you should be free to express any ideas you have, any opinions you have, and any organization you would like to belong. A free media. To what extent we have free media is questionable, but yes, the people need to have a free media where they can get all the news they want. Regular elections in which all eligible citizens are allowed to vote. So you need to be free to vote the decisions you would like to be implied at the parliament. Universal adult suffrage, this is still within the voting. Normally above the 18 and above you can vote, but in some countries also we have 16 years limit, so this changes within the countries, but legal wise 18 is accounted to be a legal age to become able to vote. If we carry on, limited terms for elected representatives. So you can think about again USA, Obama had twice, he was in charge in the White House, and now he was opt out and somebody else will be coming because they have limited terms for representation. A fair court system that is independent from the political system, that the judges need to be free to make decisions and they can control the government if they are not doing good things for the sake of the society and community. A non-political state bureaucracy and a non-political police force and armed services, they can protect the nation. Relatively free access to state information, they need to be transparent, and the e-government service is really important for this. They in a way can prove transparency and efficiency for the governments. So if we carry on, we have totalitarianism is a form of government in which one person or political party exercise absolute control over all space of human life and prohibits opposing political parties. So they will tell me that I'm not going to use my devices, I don't have any other option but only to vote for them, and this kind of regime is totally a regime. So we can have 4 different types of totalitarianism. First one is communist totalitarianism. As we already told, North Korea can be an example for it. Theocratic one, where political power is monopolized by a party, by a group or individual that governs according to religious principles. We have tribal one and right-wing totalitarian regime. Generally permits some individual economic freedom, but restricts individual political freedom, so frequently on the grounds that it will lead to rise of the communism. So they allow you to take some economic activities, but they ban you to think about political wise, in the sake of they're afraid of communism will arise. Okay, we done the first part and the economic system. Let's see to what extent they are valid nowadays. First one is the market economy. So the market economy, or we can call it free enterprise economy, they rely least on the provision of public sector services. So in other words, goods and services are provided by the private firms, and public sector, the state doesn't get involved that much. So vast majority are provided by the private business, and the allocation of resources is determined by market forces, which is demand, that represent customers, and supply, they are producers. So suppliers and consumers decide what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce, and state doesn't get involved in the market economy. We have also command economy that opposite to market economy. So they rely entirely on the public sector, choose, produce, and distribute goods. All resources in this kind of economies, in command economies, in plan economies, belong to the government. So state is responsible for planning, organizing, and coordinating the whole production process. So they are responsible for production as well as the distribution of the goods. So goods are distributed from state outlets where they are sold to the consumers, and the prices are determined by government, not by the customers, not by the suppliers. Normally there is intersection between demand and supply, and this is our market price, selling price. But in this kind of economy, the government decides the price which goods to be sold. And finally, mixed economy. So we are living in 2016 nowadays, and a mixed economy relies both the public sector and private sector to provide goods and services. So there is state normally controls, and there is free market which produce goods. And in reality, no economy is entirely planned or free. Most countries in the world nowadays have mixed economies, and the decisions what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce are made jointly between consumers and the state. And finally, last but not least, we will look at the legal systems. The legal system of a country refers to the rules that people need to obey, laws that we need to take care of, that we not break out the laws. They regulate our behavior along with the process by which the laws are enforced and through which redress for grievances obtained. So according to these rules and laws, we behave accordingly the nation's standards. So we have different legal systems within the different nations. Common law. This is based on tradition, precedent, and custom, where tradition refers to a country's legal history, what happened before, within the laws and regulations. Precedent to cases that have come before the courts in the past, and custom to the ways in which laws are applied in specific situations. That's the common law. If we carry on, we have civil law. It's based on detailed set of laws organized in the courts. And we have theocratic law, is one which the law is based on religious teachings, and Islamic law is the most widely practiced through legal system in the modern world, although usage of both Hindu and Jewish law persisted into 20th century. Okay, what we had covered this week, we started by the difference of the individualism and collectivism, because what they affect individualist countries, individualist nations are more democratic. Collectivist countries are more totalitarian. We see their differences and their different usage. And different nations have different collectivist side or individualist side, and you can check out also from website of Hofstede. He has an extensive definition of the countries and their tendency according to these needs. Also, we carry and capture about the economic types, the free market, where there is only private sector and minimum of public sector. We have command economy, where this is all about the public sector, and we have mix, which is the reality nowadays. And we also carry about the laws, talk about the different law types. And if you have any questions, we will have a live session on the system. You can also send me an email anytime you need. Hope to see you next week.